Like, what's the point of a moderate Republican now? To what? Rubber stamp Tulsi Gabbard and RFK? Like, they're doing more harm than good now.
I was on this panel with Rove last week, and Rove is like, I'd rather have him in there, than whatever, pizza.
Mark Robinson.
Porn star pizza guy. And I was kind of like, real? Are we sure? Why, though? When? Like, when? Okay, then when? Like, wouldn't this be the moment?
Hello, everyone. It's JVL here with my best friends, Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller of the Bulwark. Guys, last night, Tuesday night, we got word that the Inspector General from USAID had been fired. We also got word that there were a whole bunch of firings at the CFPB, Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau.
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Thank you. This is why I was just going to say CFPB.
You'd think as a big Liz Warren Pocahontas stan that you are, you would know the name of the
agency that she manifested.
Yeah. Well, it was good, great while it lasted. So I mean, this is all happening, and I want to start with another firing that went under the radar, and I just want to tee this up, and then I'm going to throw to you guys. So the CFO of FEMA was fired on Tuesday. Why was the CFO of FEMA fired? Let me read to you from the New York Times report on this. What happened was this. The firings capped a startling chain of events that began on Monday with an early morning social media post by Elon Musk, who claimed misleadingly that FEMA had recently spent $59 million meant for disaster relief to New York City to pay for, quote, high-end hotels for migrants who called the expenditure unlawful. New York City officials raced to clarify that the federal money had been properly allocated by FEMA under President Joseph R. Biden last year, adding that it was not a disaster relief grant and that it had not been spent on luxury hotels. Nonetheless, just 2 hours after Mr. Musk's post, FEMA's acting director, Cameron Hamilton, announced that the payments in question, quote, have all been suspended, quote, even though most of the money had already been dispersed, and that, quote, personnel will be held accountable. After that, a few hours later, the CFO was fired. So what you have here is the law requiring FEMA to disperse these funds, FEMA CFO following the law and being fired for doing so because Elon Musk tweeted about it. Sarah, can I just put a quarter in the machine and you tell me what you think of all this?
I mean, here's the thing. And I don't know if Tim agrees with this or not, as like a former...
I hope we disagree.
Well, I don't know. Both of us being kind of like Republican squishes, but who like the idea of cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, right? We were raised on the fraud, waste, and abuse of government spending. Yeah. And so there's this tension here right now between me looking at certain agencies that I have long thought, do we need that agency? Like, did that have to be a whole agency? Feels like that could have been a department somewhere.
Was that a thing for you for FEMA? You've been looking at FEMA for all these years and being like, do we really need this?
Not FEMA, but like CFPB, for example. Yeah, sure. I think that CFPB actually does some very important work on things like when credit cards try to kill people on like overdraft fees or like charge them really high interest rates, and like poor people who rely on these credit cards end up with these like astronomical interest rates and things like that. And they're scams, right? And the CFPB cracked down on that. And that was one of, now I said again, it could have been a department somewhere maybe. And so I'm not against looking at a lot of these agencies and seeing ways in which tax dollars are like the level, like accountability on that is important. Transparency on that is important. Following the law is important. And here's the thing about what's happening right now in the way that they're doing it. There is no transparency. We have no visibility into what they're doing because they're just and like when they were firing people, now some of the reporting shows this, and actually I've heard this from people, like I've got it confirmed from IRL friends who've gotten, they sent out emails that were like, Dear first name, dear first name, your services are no longer required in the department of insert department here. And so it's
literally from a movie about a dystopia with like a mix between a dystopia
This is from
with
Terry
George
Gilliam's
Jetson's boss.
Brazil.
Yeah, with George Jetson's boss as being in charge.
Right.
What was his name? It'll come to me. Keep going.
okay. So the point is, there's no transparency. They're not following the law. Like, they're not following the law. The people in the
Actively
agencies
breaking
are
it.
following. In fact, they're actively breaking it. And no accountability for them, right? There's like, everybody's just watching them maraud through the government and being like, well, we didn't anticipate this. We don't actually have a mechanism to stop them, except for the injunctions being put in place by the courts, which a host of sort of Fox News / Scott Jennings level CNN talkers are all rushing to be like, yeah, just ignore this. Like, I'm watching Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh on Twitter was like, this guy, he was talking about one of like the district court judges, this is disgusting and it's like, what does that have to do with the law? That you think this person, you don't like the aesthetics of this man who has made the decision. So we should just ignore the law? This is where they are now. Tim seemed like he had some thoughts.
I have a lot of
Timmy.
thoughts, but I was interested. I want to get to your question about whether I'm happy about federal bureaucrats getting fired at the end of my thoughts. Cosmo G. Spacely was George Jetson's
there you
boss.
go. I remember
he had,
him.
He had the little Hitler mustache. It's kind of interesting.
No,
that
I
just
think
kind
that
of like
I think
worked.
that was the indent that had 5 o'clock shadow.
I thought it was a Hitler
I believe.
mustache. Anyway, Cosmo
could
G.
be.
Spacely.
Just bad
Musk,
animation.
Firing people. So a couple of thoughts really quick. The FEMA guy did nothing wrong is the other thing. Like, it's just important to like say that, right? That I'm fine. Again, if like, you know, my old guy that I interviewed, Jason Calacanis from the All In podcast, was getting dunked on Twitter because he was like, well, we spent too much money. We should just cut 10 to 30% of every agency. Like, at some level, like, that's, that would create problems. But at some level, that's preferable to what's happening, right? Like targeting a single person because you didn't like the policy that they implemented, that they were required to implement by Congress and by the last administration. I mean, like, that's insane. Like, that is an insane way to treat federal government employees. And so, anyway, so like that, I think that to me is why like this doesn't really tickle my like Republican, you know, pleasure centers, like my former Republican pleasure centers at all, even though I'm for cutting all of this, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, because like the way that they're doing it is lawless and cruel and doesn't seem, and I can't imagine is even going to be effective at achieving the goals. I could be one thing, you know, you could probably sell me on one thing that I'd be for that our listeners probably would hate. You could probably sell me on like hiring some Bobs, hiring McKinsey with like 2 Bobs to come in and be like, what would you say you do here? And start slicing people. Like, okay, that'd be for that. Like, that's not what's happening here. Like, it is just retribution and, you know, capricious actions by a guy that's tweeting like until 4:30 in the morning every morning.
And also, the underlying predicate for the way that they're doing it would have to be that all government is useless. And I guess this is what I was getting at before, Tim, is like, I could get on board, right, with bringing somebody in. If they were bringing in some forensic, like, accountants or
Mitch
people
Daniels.
who were... Yeah, but they were bringing people in to like do hard audits. Right. But you know what? They don't have auditors in there. They got a bunch of 25-year-olds who are just like, beep, bop, boop, shut down access to emails, shut down access. It's over. The whole thing is done. Your services are no longer required. First name on date inserted. And so like this idea, it also does not. It does not. I'm not getting anything out of it as a waste, fraud, and a Bruce cut lover, because the idea that government like FEMA does do some things that matter to people. And if they cut FEMA, so they just like, you know, they're just, you know, decimating it because they're mad about, I don't know what, because they helped Puerto Rico or something. The next, when the hurricane hits, you know, North Carolina or Mississippi, and we don't have anybody to respond, like, this is where this is where I keep coming back to. Right now, there's all this activity, and voters are like, look at this. After a few years of not seeing a president and feeling like no one was talking to me and feeling like now I'm seeing all of these
that guy
things.
was doing was passing legislation and building chip factories and overpasses.
Sleeping and resting.
Ugh.
And
I
none
never
of that-
saw him on TV, so he couldn't have
That's
been
right.
doing any government.
That's right. That's right. They never saw
I hate
him.
the voters so much. I can't even.
Okay, well,
you got a full
sorry.
14 hours most nights.
I think this is on them. I think this is on them and not the voters. They didn't communicate about any of this stuff, and now Trump's in everybody's face, and everyone's like, "Look, he's doing something." And for the average voter, that's not. But eventually, there will be negative personal consequences for a lot of people as a result of the things that are happening. You know, the episode that I've got coming out of the focus group is an immigration episode, and without giving too much away because my producers hate it when I do that. One of the things that's really interesting is that these voters who are Trump voters, they are Biden to Trump voters, and many of them of Hispanic descent, and they're split. There's a bunch of people that are like, well, can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So if, the nice grandfather next door gets deported along with, whatever. And they're very like, we got to do something about this. Trump's doing something about this. This is great. Then there's this other half of the voters who voted for Trump who are like, but I thought he was just going to do criminals. Like, they're going into schools. Like, what's happening? And I think that is going to start happening more and more, where there are not all of them. There's going to be people who are gung-ho about what's happening, but then there's going to be other people who are like, well, I just thought it was going to be this. I didn't think it was going to be all of this.
Yeah, two thoughts on this. One is, have we gotten any jobs yet? This is the other thing related to the firing, that I think is potentially a threat to him, because we have some pretty substantive examples at this point of people losing their jobs. We have a lot of pink slips out there going out throughout the government. What has been the positive economic agenda? We've changed the Google Maps. That's Gulf of America now. That's a big win. Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, JVL's boy, said yesterday that we're not going to say air missions anymore. We're going to say airmen. So that's a W. We're even if a woman is flying, we're saying airmen now. We're changing the names of things. But there haven't been any big ribbon cuttings, right? And so I know that this is the CFO of FEMA and the Inspector General of Department of Ag aren't exactly the most sympathetic figures to, the mass public, but eventually it does get to the point where, we're losing people, but are we gaining anybody? And there was my JVL's got to enjoy the most delicious story of the week. Did you see the most delicious story of the week? Do you know what I'm going to tell you about?
I don't know.
The Greene County, Tennessee. Oh, it's devastating news for Greene County, Tennessee. They had a penny plant. They had a penny plant.
But pennies are canceled.
I know, they're panicking. They're panicking because the pennies are canceled. Now, Greene County went something like 97% for Trump and then 2% for Melania and 1% for Nikki Haley. I don't think Kamala had a single voter in Greene County, Tennessee. So a lot of concerns. And then with the local newspaper.
To be fair, do you know that it costs 3 cents to make one penny?
I'm against a penny. I'm against the penny.
Pennies are
I'm
over.
with Trump on this one. I'm against him on Gulf of America. I'm with him on the penny. But my point is that, again, all this stuff adds up. We're like, wait a minute. So the penny plant's shutting down. The FEMA guy's getting fired. Who's getting hired? Is anybody getting hired? Because we're seeing examples of the firing. And
Rick Grinnell got hired to be the head of the Kennedy Center.
I put my one gay in at the head of the Kennedy Center. Okay,
Guys,
we went out there. I found one gay.
Tim, why haven't we made more jokes about this? This guy, I hate Rick Grinnell.
Worse than Trump, actually, probably for me. If it was Trump versus Grinnell in a primary, that would be the time that I would lose my never Trump status. I would finally fold.
But here's the thing: this guy is like a foreign policy guy, and it's insulting, isn't it, to put him in? They took the one. Now there's a gay at the Treasury Department too. They put a gay stiff at the Treasury, but Grinnell being in charge of the Kennedy Center just to make sure there's no more drag shows. Yeah. I go to the Kennedy Center a lot. I have never seen a drag show there. Maybe I saw hair there. They had some naked naked hippies on stage.
How do you think
we
James
bring back the
O'Keefe
classical shows.
took Rick Grinnell getting that gig? I bet James O'Keefe is pretty sore about that. I have a couple things I'd like to respond
You have to be deep. You have to be deep in the understanding, like the musical theater prowess of James O'Keefe to get that joke.
That's okay.
But
That's one for the real ones.
Yeah.
A couple things. First of all, waste, fraud, and abuse. You guys are engaging on this as if it's done in good faith. Like, you guys are like,
No,
look
we're
at
not.
this ridiculous way
Imagining
No,
as
you're
if
we're
it
trying to
not.
would.
No, we're not.
Because the point, waste, fraud, and abuse is just the cover story. The idea is we need to thoroughly politicize the government and get rid of anybody who won't follow orders, even if the orders are illegal.
We
And one of the
understand.
things we
That is
talked
our
about-
point. Our
Okay.
point is that we might be naturally
We would
sympathetic.
be like it if it was in good faith. That was the point.
As for the, there are going to be consequences about this. I'm not so sure. And the reason is this. There will be consequences. But I wonder if Trump isn't going to be able to paper over those consequences by just shoveling money out the door to make whole his people when they get hurt. So, for instance, you said what happens with FEMA when there's a big hurricane hits Biloxi or something. Well, I don't know. Why can't Trump pass an executive order saying we're going to drop $150 million into Biloxi tomorrow? I mean, who's going to stop him from doing that, right? And I just look at what he did with the farmer bailout in the first term. Remember that the tariffs, and he then spent, I think it was $24 billion, maybe.
I only know this because I had Malinowski on the pod yesterday, and he was pushing this $28 billion, and he worked for the State Department. So he was making the point that it was more than the entire budget of the State Department was the farmer bailout last time.
So I think that Trump knows how to pay people off. And I think that it is not inconceivable that what he wants to do is cause a lot of pain with the understanding that he can then protect and make whole his people and let the blue state hippies deal with, with the actual pain. I think that's entirely plausible. So
that may be true, but can I just, on this, 40% of voters in California are Republicans. And so let's say he's just there's a big wildfire and he's California can pound sand. That doesn't not do anything to him politically, and certainly not to me, right? When you've got a lame duck president who treats a run in 2028 like a thing, right? The number one way you avoid that, Trump's not making a play for 2028 if in 18 months he's at 39% approval, which is
won't those blue state Republicans in California just blame Gavin Newsom? This is what I'm saying. I think politically you can shift that blame, right? They're having bad outcomes, and it's all woke Gavin Newsom's fault. It's not my fault. I keep circling something that I'm not sure is a thought, so I'm just gonna say this, but if they shut down the government in this way, and there is not widespread negative personal consequences as a result that people can see and feel, that's an indictment of what the government's doing. And so either the government is providing a lot of services that by cutting it off, it will cause pain, inevitably, or they're right and you can gut the government and take away all these things and no one will notice.
I guess the middle ground to this version would be it will cause pain, but the amount of people who are touched by that pain will be offset by a greater amount of people who like the show. And, that's all kind of a TBD.
Well, also, I think,
or who get bailed out,
going to the utter idiocy of the median voter, I am not convinced that Trump won't be able to make a government shut down the fault of Democrats somehow. I don't know that he necessarily.
Well, they
he'll
certainly might be. I don't know. Against I was screaming at poor Tom Malinowski yesterday on the podcast because he was like, "I'm not saying it's not my fault," but no, I mean literally, multiple House Democrats yesterday, in interviews were like, well, I don't know if we should shut the government down. I don't want to be part of that. My constituents don't want to be part of that. And I'm going, you have no obligation. Why are you even talking about this?
Don't even talk that way. Don't even say, I don't want to be part of it. You
can't do anything.
Mr. Democrat, will not be part of a government shutdown.
Yeah. Point
Don't
at the other side.
Way.
Be like, why are you talking to me, journalist? Why are you even asking me about this? Go talk to Mike Johnson. If they want to come beg me to help them keep the government open because they're incapable, okay, I'll wait for his phone call. I'll wait for his text message. But so yeah, no, it's certainly possible that they'll botch this.
With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Tired of figuring out what's for dinner night after night, especially on those busy weekdays? My God, yes. It's like they're listening to a secret recording of our house. Well, now you can get dinner done the easy way, thanks to HelloFresh. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered to your door. HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from your fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes. It's the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you expect from HelloFresh, just with none of the work. Their lineup of prep and bake meals come together with minimal mess and only 5 minutes of prep, so your oven does most of the work for you, not you. Again, cannot emphasize this enough. They're basically pre-prepped for you. Save valuable time with fewer trips to the grocery store thanks to HelloFresh Market. There's over 100 add-on items that you can add to your weekly box, like quick breakfasts, packable snacks, beverages, and more. Another one of our sponsors, Green Chef, is now owned by HelloFresh. And with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's something for everyone. Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/thenextlevel10FM. One item per box with active subscription, free meals applied as discount on first box, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/thenextlevel10FM. All right. Yesterday, Elon Musk went into the Oval Office with his hat and a T-shirt, and this is a thing which is fine now. It was very bad when Barack Obama had a selfie stick and wore a tan suit in the Oval Office, but Elon Musk having his baseball MAGA cap and his T-shirt is cool. And he held a press conference while Donald Trump sat there like a little bitch in the corner, which was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. And among the other things that we got was Elon saying, some of the things I say will be incorrect. Oh. Oh. So
Don't
that's
say,
a thing that
Doctor.
the shadow president is.
Mate, if you're Xing 482 times in a given day, I mean, what are you going to expect? You know, I'm only sleeping from 4:45 to 5:20, and then I send my first X at 5:21 in the morning, and so I'm going to miss a couple.
I have a question. When he verbally engages with reporters, does he say poop emoji out loud in response to questions?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I haven't seen it yet, but I wouldn't put it past Harry Balls to do that. So I guess, I mean, I would like to make jokes about Trump being the senile old man who has been totally cucked by Elon, because Elon is cucking Trump with the government. But I don't think that we can really joke about this. It all seems kind of serious. Timmy, can you? Oh, no, sorry, Sarah. You're already wound up. Go.
I do think it's important that this is an important point. We have all, I think, had a working assumption about Trump, right? There's a lot of where we've all tried to get in Trump's mind, which is a thing I hate to do, but we have this sense of Trump, right? Like Trump won't sit in a corner while somebody else takes the spotlight, that he is sort of physically incapable of that. That is, I think, the conventional wisdom about Trump. But he's doing something that I think we have to adjust to, which is whether it's because of the deal they cut for Elon to come in with his $250 million to help purchase this presidency for Trump. I don't know what deal got made, but Trump is not reacting to Elon the way he reacted to Bannon. And he is not it's different. Something different is happening. And I do think we need to start saying, oh, I'm not sure there's just like an obvious wedge here, or that, Bannon going after point. Or that Bannon going after Elon's going to create this rift. Like something different's happening.
Yeah, can I just offer 2 cents on this? Bannon acknowledged this to me when I interviewed him. He said to me just point blank, the guy raised $250 million for the election, and he didn't do it in like a stupid way. Like the Adelsons did. Bannon took a shot at the Adelsons. He's like he did it the right way. He was out there. He was supportive of the agenda. He was supportive of the grassroots. He was giving money to people. He's like he had, and then he also has his own platform. Bannon even acknowledged to me this is a different situation. And then on top of that, you're getting into the psychological thing about Trump wants the respect and love of the other super wealthy. So I think all of that is at play here. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and can I just, on this point about how the money was distributed, I think we missed this a little bit in real time. We all knew Musk was putting a lot of money into the campaign, but remember there was a period of time where it seemed like Musk said he was going to do a lot of money, but then we all were seemed like he pulled it back or wasn't actually giving it directly to Trump. This is a thing that I just think a story that got missed is that what he did was, when you say he didn't do it in a stupid way like the Adelsons or whatever, the traditional way people do these things is through PACs or through, political organizations. There's networks of C3s, C4s. Now you're not allowed to do political work with C3s. But people do get out the votes, whatever. He just did everything straight up through an LLC. So there was no visibility into his spending, right? He just has so much money that he could just be like, yeah, I don't need to put it in an organization. I don't need the controls of the government around this or to do any of that. I'm just going to and so I'm not, nobody's getting a tax or I don't need anonymity or any of the things that sort of normally dominate the way the political structures are built. He just went outside of them and with just straightforward money with and put it together with other billionaires. And no, I think people didn't catch this when it was happening.
Here's the other thing we missed, though, in real time. So we got fixated on all of the waste, fraud, and abuse with Musk's money. Because remember, there were tons of stories of, a truck full of guys who were making up where they were going because they were just trying to get $5,000 a day from Elon and stuff like that. Waste, fraud, and abuse. And what we missed was at the volume he was spending, efficiency was not important. So in a way, this was like a private electoral version of the emergency COVID stimulus.
Yes.
Right? You've got to get the money out the door so fast that you don't care if it's targeted at all. You do money bomb something, and a whole bunch of it is going to be inefficiently spent, and you don't care because the total mass of the money will move the needle, which is why Kamala Harris won the election and Donald Trump didn't. It was fraud. So he didn't actually win. No, listeners, there's always one commenter that's kind of that's genuine on that in the YouTube. If you scroll through, no, that is not correct, JBL. I had one other thought about the press conference. A reader had emailed me a video from, the Wayback Machine 13 years ago. It has 3,000 views on YouTube, so it didn't really get the big attention. It's President Barack Obama. I don't know if you remember him. He's doing a signing ceremony for an effort to cut waste and promote efficiency, 2011. And there he is. He's sitting behind the desk. He's in a suit. Everybody's in a suit. We've got a diverse group of old people behind him. Joseph Robinette Biden's there, Jack Lew, other folks I don't recognize. And he's giving a very kind of boring remarks to the C-SPAN cameras about it. And you don't ever need to hand it to Trump and Elon, but I do just think that we're now, if we ever get the democracy back again, we're in idiocracy and mode. And to get people to care about stuff and to talk about it,
like what Elon, if you took the earnest version, back to what you're saying earlier, JVL, the good faith version of what they were trying to do, it's like it's just the same thing that they tried to do, and maybe Elon's more effective at it than the Democratic bureaucrats because of interest groups or whatever. Sure, but like that's not what they're doing. And like now he's like in the Oval Office with his kid on his shoulders, jumping around, showing his belly, and like that is, you know, how you get people to notice. I think that like this little press conference here that Barack Obama had from the old times, we'll put it in the show notes. People can watch it and kind of feel warm about how things used to be. Like that's just not a way to get anybody to know about what you're doing anymore.
That moment is closer to the politics of the Gettysburg Address than it is to today.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
in terms of like eras of American politics, that is more in common with the 1850s than it does with 2025.
Yeah, this is going to be my most annoying opinion for the next however many years I'm allowed to have a podcast, Mike, is that I like the Democrats need to start doing this now. And I don't wish it so. I wish we could have this. Not like there's certain limits on this, but like we need a little more carnival. We need a little more show, unfortunately.
So I sort of agree with this. I saw that you, Tim, promoted the sort of Jen Psaki Schlossberg podcast. And so I went and listened to it, which is rare for me. I actually try to stay away from a lot of other people's analysis so it doesn't cloud my own. But I was listening to this guy and I was like, I did not agree. I agreed to some degree with his analysis, which is that so much of it's stupid. And the Republicans are so much better at capturing sort of the stupid attention economy, right? They own the stupid attention economy in such a complete way and in so many different verticals, right? This point about how, hey man, you want to watch a video about working out and like pretty soon you're down a rabbit hole of like creatine, Joe Rogan, RFK, and like,
maxing.
Yeah. And, but the response to that is like sort of he's doing like an absurdist commentary on it, which I didn't think.
Oh yeah, no, he's ridiculous. I mean, I find him charming and handsome. Obviously, he's really good. I was talking like specifically. I don't have the quote in front of me because I didn't know you were going to say it. There was like one answer where he gave a serious answer where he was like, "The internet does not do nuance." And you should do this instead. I forget exactly what he said, but like he was basically like, you have to be performative. I was not saying like pretending like you want to sleep with your grandmother is a good idea. And he does other weird stuff like you should lie. Like he's a weird fella. But this is core point.
Yeah, and this is the tension JVL and I often have when we're discussing this stuff, where he's like, well, the voters are idiots. And I'm like, well, nobody's even talking to the voters. Like, it's really, I think it's unfair to blame voters when Democrats, I don't even think you have to go full circus. Like, maybe just talk to them. Joe Biden it's like people saying, well, it didn't work. This thing we never tried, it didn't work. Like, I don't know, try talking to people. Democrats, try telling them a story. Try having any kind of communication strategy that's outward facing that doesn't require a PowerPoint and a ton of talking points. Like, just go say the thing that matters.
Or old people singing. Okay. Old people singing.
Oh my God, did you see that? No, it's not. Jeez.
All right, we got to move on because it's a good show, short show. Very
Peter,
quickly,
Paul, and Mary tunes we can do together.
Puff the Magic
Hold
Dragon.
hands.
You know, I think that song is about drugs.
Yeah,
anyway,
it is, JV.
You remember last week on the show we were talking about Elon Musk's read-only access, and I said that I would believe that when somebody showed me the screenshots of the admin dashboard with all of the permissions that his account had. We did get word yesterday that in fact, oopsie, he had more than read-only access, but it was a mistake.
You're joking.
It was a mistake. Some of the things he says will be incorrect.
It's just a little oopsie doops.
I want to talk briefly about the AP reporter getting kicked out of the White House because the Associated Press uses the woke term Gulf of Mexico. And I want to talk about this. There's like the silly version of this, but the serious version of this is
we don't have time for the silly version.
Trump wants to
the
dictate
AP dead naming the Gulf of America.
Very good.
Your joke on Twitter about how they wouldn't use the Gulf of Mexico's preferred pronouns was really funny.
Thank you.
Very good. it is slightly bad to have the White House dictating how news organizations cover it. But what I wanted to ask is where Fox News is on this, because you guys may remember that in 2009, when the Obama White House did some mean things to Fox News, mainstream media reporters like Jake Tapper on CNN and Ruth Marcus at the Washington Post took to the battlements to defend the honor of Fox News against the, quote, Nixonian attacks coming from the Obama White House on the integrity of Fox News. And Jake Tapper called it a dangerous path for the White House to embark on. So since Fox had the rest of the lib cuck media defending them, I assume they are gonna go after Trump hard for the.
I think there's some Bible and children's stories about this, JVL.
What is it?
You have to sometimes you have to do the right thing, even if they're not going to do it back to you. Kind of like, I think there's some just fundamental moral.
Well, I hope we've all learned from that. I mean, I hope that we're not. No, I hope we are no longer operating under those morals. Because that code is a dead letter, right?
I mean, clearly for them, no, Fox. You didn't see the segment. It was Dana Perino, it was Steve Doocy. They were coming to the defense of the AP reporter Julie Pace. No, you didn't see that. I haven't seen that either. Maybe no.
No.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I'm just saying. I hope that the rest of the media now understands. However,
you know who I did see do it though is so FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which is a great group and has been very principled on free speech. They are pointing out correctly on a number of fronts. They're the ones they're sort of defending Ann Seltzer in the litigation, but they're pointing out that
we don't say her name anymore. Just so you know, going forward, that's the last time I want to hear her name for like a year. It's triggering.
I know. She did us dirty.
Please don't mention her. Nothing against her. I just don't have to hear the name.
I know. I get it. I know that's triggering for you. It's hard. But this administration is the most anti-free speech administration we have ever seen. And what's worse about it is that they pretend like they are pro-free speech. And what makes me crazy is that all the people who were these like self-appointed free speech warriors and this is what I admire about FIRE, is like, it is a principled through line. They are defending free speech no matter who it is that is, trying to take it away. And as a result, they're all over the Trump administration because this Trump administration is entirely anti-free speech. But all of the people who rode the free speech wave with Elon, no, I don't hear any of those guys talking about this.
Oh, I'm sure Barry Weiss is just about to talk
Brit Hume.
This.
Oh, Brit Hume was the thing I was going to say. He tweeted on top of FIRE that just said, "I agree." Right?
Okay. There you go. I'll take it. Okay. I'll take it.
I think it was they're defending racist speech. I think that was the thing. They wanted to be able to do racist stuff, and that was the free speech they were worried about. And as long as they're able to do that without any condemnation, I don't think that they have like kind of broad concerns beyond that.
Oh wait, can I just give you some breaking news?
Sure.
The consumer price index accelerated 0.5% for the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 3%. They were higher than the respective Dow Jones estimate for 0.3%. Excluding volatile food and energy prices, CPI rose 0.4 in the month, putting the 12-month inflation rate at 3.3%. So, crypto's down 2%. Anyway, the point is, since January, since Trump took over, we're seeing
it's interesting. That actually explains something. As I was walking up, running late for this podcast, I saw that I had a message about how Trump had bleated about how Jerome Powell needs to lower the interest rates.
He wants
So now this makes sense that he wants to bully the Fed into lowering interest rates, even though the Fed's worried about inflation still.
That's right.
It's going to be great when he tries to replace Jerome Powell. What could possibly be wrong? I will say, just to put a button on this, one of the things we're going to get in the next 2 years, I'm convinced, is a Supreme Court challenge to New York Times v. Sullivan. And because Trump has always wanted to make it easier to sue people for speech. And I think that is likely to happen. I think there are at least 4 votes on the court for that. All right, last thing. I would like to have a 2 minutes hate on Susan Collins. Susan Collins has said that she is concerned with some of the things she's seeing. And Steve Bannon over at MS had...
Different from Steve Bannon. This is Steve
Different
Bannon.
from Steve Bannon. Collins, as chair of the powerful Senate committee that oversees federal spending, could schedule immediate hearings. She could start issuing subpoenas. She could introduce legislation. She could let GOP leaders and the White House know that if they expect her support on, among other things, key confirmation votes, the administration will need to quickly change course on the NIH's future. So, yes, right? I mean, Susan Collins is in the majority and is a senior senator with a powerful position. If she was concerned, she would act in such a manner as to express her concern, right?
I thought you were doing a 2 minutes hate. I was waiting for your full 2 minutes.
Susan Collins is my new thing. I said this to Sarah yesterday. I think I hate her more than Ted Cruz.
Mm. Yeah, and Tom Tillis definitely, not Collins for me. Sarah, you go first because I have a separate hate that I would like to end with.
Well, the only thing that on Collins is just, in 2020, I didn't like the idea that there were the going after Susan Collins trying to defeat her, right? I wasn't, because I was like, no, look, you guys, we need our moderate Republicans. And, I just had this residual loyalty to her around the stand she took on gay marriage early on. She was such a champion. So I've always liked Susan Collins personally, saw her speak a lot of times around marriage equality. But it's over for me now. I think in 2026, you've got to
utterly irresponsible. Yes,
it is irresponsible. And it's sort of also what's the point of a moderate Republican now? To what? Rubber stamp Tulsi Gabbard and RFK? They're doing more harm than good now. And so, I have no interest in defending her.
I was on this panel with Rove last week, and Rove is defending Tom Tillis, which in some ways made me empathetic to him because it's the hardest job in the world. Tom Tillis is totally indefensible and has there's no argument in favor of his behavior really, besides just crass politics. But the best Carl could do was I'd rather have him in there, than whatever pizza
Mark Robinson,
porn star pizza guy. And I was kind of are we sure? Why though? When? When? Okay, then when? Wouldn't this be the moment? Because we didn't even get to this. I'm going to talk about it on the Daily Show if you want more. But the Kash Patel story. There's a whistleblower. We all knew this. This was obvious. But there's a whistleblower that's saying that Kash Patel was pushing or maybe ordering even the purge of the Bureau of the FBI. And he got asked about this directly by Cory Booker, and he lied. He just lied. He just was no, it wasn't me. And so, if this is not the opportunity for Susan Collins or Tom Tillis to stand up and say, I'm sorry, no. You cannot have somebody that has an enemies list and a QAnon book who's totally unqualified, who just lied to my face about a purging of good law enforcement, federal law enforcement officials. And it's not even they're unsympathetic to conservative figures, to FBI officials. He just lied about a purge of them. If this isn't the moment to stand up, then when is it? Then you're oh, you want Tom Tillis in there just in case there's a real coup again, and then he's really going to stand up then? It's okay, whatever. So no. I'm a no on him and
Let
Collins.
me tell you why Carl says that. Turd Blossom says that because if you have Mark Robinson, then Karl Rove is in the position of saying, yes, I prefer Mark Robinson to a normal, median, average Democratic senator.
Right. It's
and he doesn't want to have to say that. Yeah. That's that would be a more painful and embarrassing thing for Karl Rove, to have to say out loud. Yeah. And so he prefers Tom Tillis, because he is Team R no matter what.
I guess my point about
don't make him say that he don't make Karl Rove say that he would rather have Mark Robinson.
Totally agree. I guess my point is that if Susan Collins has any value at all, it would be on the Kash Patel situation. Right. Say what you want about some of these other nominees, and they're horrible, right? But this is somebody that is unqualified, that is in a huge position of responsibility, that demonstrated himself to be a liar to your face. If not this, then like don't tell me you're like saving your powder for like what is going to be more serious than this in the next year, right? Like the tax bill. I would rather have you go along with the Trump tax bill, whatever that ends up being, than this. So anyway, so that's my rant about Susan Collins. I did have one more 1 minute hate for the very end. My old pal Eli Lake, we've had a few, we've gone round and around a few times. Was over on his podcast. If you really want to just suffer, you can go find my interview on the Eli Lake podcast that we did a couple years ago. It was like 90 minutes and I was hungover and I forgot that I had to do it. And we just go round and around the bend about how he is upset at the deep state for targeting Trump is the short of it. And I was saying that I thought the deep state acted pretty much appropriately in the first Trump term. He's got a story out today over at the Free Press. Trump is starving the National Endowment for Democracy. DOGE has frozen funds to the organization that was instrumental in helping the Cold War. It's been a bloodbath. That's the subhead. The story begins with a lament. It's hard to keep track of the upheaval in Washington amid the media freakout. It's hard to distinguish important changes from trivial ones. But what's happening at the one thing I care about, the National Endowment of Democracy, is a very big deal indeed. Is it? Is it a very big deal indeed? I mean, I'm for the National Endowment for Democracy. I think it's interesting, that you would pick that one out of all these other things. That their value is different from the USAID value, which is different from having inspectors general looking at corruption, different from having the top floor of the FBI be hollowed out. All of those seem pretty important to me. But it is tough for an anti-woke neocon these days, because you got to in some ways you would think happiness. I would think you'd have happiness if you were like a strongly anti-woke neocon, because you have these wins. You've got the Gulf of America. You've got airmen. We're saying airmen now. We're just doing LGB. Not LGBTQ. That's a win. Only 3 letters now. LGB.
One day,
that's,
we're going to get that down to just L. One
or
day,
B.
if we work really hard.
Probably for some of these guys, B would be their preferred letter. But anyway, female B, FB. So, if we just got it down to that, then all these guys would be really happy.
So much truth there.
Anyway, you just think that you'd be happy about that win. You've had all those W's. Sure, you have to sacrifice the National Endowment for Democracy. You got to. I'm sorry. We can't do, promoting freedom abroad. We can't support people fighting tyranny anymore. We can't help the global poor. But we do get to kind of own the libs in South Mississippi that want to call the beach there at the Gulf of Mexico, I guess. I don't know. We get to own a couple people.
2 things about this. First, the weirdness of having to couch a criticism of the Trump administration in like 3 sentences of the media is terrible. Don't listen to anything. The media is horrible. And the media are saying things that are actually fine, and it's all, but they're awful. Also, Trump did do this one thing that is legit bad. That's pathological to not just be able to say, "Hey, Trump just did this thing that's legit bad." Like it's a sign of psychosis. But second, Eli and all of these motherfuckers, believe me, they're going to see their way past this. Give it a few.
Of course.
Give it a few weeks. And the National
of course they're going to see their way past it, but they had to get on the record. I've been totally thrown in. Just so you know.
I've criticized Trump in the past. Motherfuckers.
The good news is they'll find a nice landing spot. The people that work at the National Endowment for Democracy, Hoover, somebody, the Manhattan Institute, Chris Rufo's probably got a organization they can work at to make sure that there are no 2nd grade teachers reading gay penguin books. We'll find that there's important work to be done still in the kind of nonprofit anti-woke space. We don't have to worry about fighting the Chinese Communist Party and supporting freedom abroad. That's kind of a 1980s. That's an outdated problem. So there we go.
Good show. Short show.
We'll see y'all soon.